So guys, welcome back to episode number 18 of the Fitness Mindset Podcast. I'm joined back with Emma Cook, who is an accredited practicing dietitian. She's based out at South Melbourne. And where else are you based out at, Em?
So I also have a practice in South Bank and also run sports dietetics for Frankston Dolphins, a VFL football team.
Awesome. Cool. So Em's actually been assisting with my 6-week challenge Fit AF in 6, which has been a huge success so far. We've been getting awesome results with clients that have been dropping weight quite consistently each week. And that is because Em actually gave everyone a meal plan to follow, and it was more male female specific, and everyone's been seeing really great success with it. So thanks to you, Em.
Thank you. It's been heaps of fun.
Yeah. So now that we're in week 4, we thought we'd run a Q&A with everyone. So we gave everyone an opportunity to ask questions, and there was really no limit as to how many questions people could ask. So we had a few people that were overly keen for this to get some really good answers. So pretty much today we're just going to go through those questions and address each one of those individually, and both myself and Em will give out input based on our, I suppose, own level of expertise. And that's it. So Em, let's hit it off. So let's look at Pia. So I'll read out Pia's question first.
Yep.
So it's a little bit of a confusing one, but I've had some face-to-face conversations with her on this one.
Yeah, I was hoping that you might have actually got a bit more clarity on that, because I think it's the balance of what I wrote up and then potentially what you've also advised her as well. Because straight away, I think, depending on obviously how much she's training, chances are Pia could probably use a little bit less than the 1800 than was given with the program. So you said you had a chat with her?
Yeah, so I'll just read out the question. So she's gone, each daily meal plan is actually based on 1800 calorie allowance. I've found that sometimes I confuse myself with the numbers, especially when I'm inputting into MyFitnessPal, because at times with the numbers, it works based on my macros, and then at times it doesn't. But honestly, then when the numbers went up last week, it did throw me off. So I follow the plan and put it into MFP, and then just write out my macros for the whole day. Last week, I found I had a few days where I worked out my meals before in the app. I made sure I met my figures and then realized I was basing it on a 1550 calorie daily allowance. I know I'm probably not making much sense. I'm sorry. So the female diet, how many calories was that based on again?
That was like 1800, and then again, a little bit subjective, because as I advised from the get-go, if you're having essentially a day or so that you're not actually training as much, then that's where you could easily start pulling snacks out. In terms of, I'm not entirely sure where, I think she said she made some adjustments, and
so historically with Pia, she was having around 1600 calories a day anyway. So she was doing Equalition before, which is I didn't hear about Equalition. Have you heard about Equalition?
Yeah, little bits and pieces. I've read sort of a few things here and there just to sort of stay up with it, but nothing. I haven't spent a whole bunch of free time on it.
Yeah. So from what I know, it's a nutritional online course that you can do. Not an online course, but basically an online coaching with nutrition. So, and it seemed to have some success with her, but I don't know how tailored it actually was. I just think it was quite generalized. So whereas now we've been able to manipulate her macros, and she's been able to drop about 6 kilos since starting with us. So which is great. So I think with her, after I've had a chat with her face to face, just a few things that Pia's gotten better at is putting all her food into MyFitnessPal the day before has been a huge one. I even find for myself, because I'm dieting, that as soon as I do it the day before and it's set, I don't cheat, tend to not cheat. Even just like little things, like one simple thing, whether it's 2 extra rice cakes that weren't originally on your plan the day before, and I might have nailed my macros the day before, like can make a world of difference, can throw things out very easily. So I think that was one. And I think, her confusion was, do I have to stick to 1800? Because this is what I was doing and it was working. Not quite sure I can hit 1800. That sort of dilemma. But I think it just had to come back and reassure her that you have the choice to follow Emma's plan, but you don't have to. And we can keep adjusting your macros from this end. I think it was just a choice for people. So I think absolutely. That was the whole thing.
Everything always serves as a guide, because at the end of the day, unless, realistically someone actually came to me and we sat down and we figured out, right, like, where are you now? Right, where do we want to be? So you're at point A, want to get to point C, and B is essentially what we want to do in the middle. So and that's when it becomes really specific, and that's why, essentially dietitians do have obviously their roles and their purpose, because that's where it is very personalized, and you tailor it to someone's condition, whether or not they have chronic condition, or whether or not, it is just the fact that they've been pursuing this for a long time and they just haven't seen any change, because realistically anything that's pulled from the internet is and should always serve as just a guide, really. So plus, it means that, she's actually starting to self-parent, which is fantastic, by actually, really thinking about this and starting to sort of understand it, I think, a little bit more from, I suppose, her own like independent sort of view. And really that's education, which is great, because it means that she can actually continue this, well and truly after the challenge. Yeah,
100%. All right, so now we'll move on to Cal, who had quite a few questions. So I'll read out the question. I'm going to let you handle this one though, because this is definitely going to be your area. So there is some bad press around sugars. Are all sugars bad, as in sugars in fruit and dairy, etc., not just the sugar added to foods? When tracking foods into MyFitnessPal, a nectarine has 12 grams of sugar, and this scares me from eating it.
Yeah, look, unfortunately, I think I'd have to say it's probably social media for you. Like, realistically, as we call it, sugar is sugar. And I think the bottom line, which will come down to, is that, yes, sugar is sugar. Like, we do need to moderate it. But collectively, looking at fruit, for example, we're advised, or all Australians are advised, to at least have 2/3 of fruit a day. The reason for that is that fruit and vegetables are a primary source of fiber. Fiber has a phenomenal amount of science behind it in terms of how well it supports your digestion. It's actually really beneficial in terms of trying to prevent chronic conditions, particularly cancer is a big one there as well. And without obviously getting your fruit and vegetable intake, then unfortunately a lot of dietary fiber is lacking. Additional to that, your fruit is a natural source, which is great. So we know that pretty much anything that is grown in the earth, realistically, you can't really argue with, for starters. And yes, you're getting sugar from that fruit, but what that actual sugar and that flesh entails is also a whole variety of vitamins and minerals that you just can't pull from other sources unless you're supplementing. So yes, you do get sugar with your fruit, but again, there's a combination between sort of glucose, sucrose, and fructose in those to make up your sugar and fruit. But what you're also getting with it is a whole bunch of vitamins and minerals that your body actually needs to thrive. On the contrary, one nectarine has 12 grams of sugar. Maybe you have 2 nectarines a day. That's 24 grams. On the contrary, you look at, say, a can of soft drink, where literally a can, which most people, I don't think, even drink cans anymore. They have, giant cups or bottles. One can has about 38 grams of sugar. And type of sugar as well is typically high fructose corn syrup, which is very, very high concentrations of fructose. And there are studies which high concentrations of fructose is actually really detrimental to your health. And let alone, you can just look at people's teeth and speak to dentists for just the really aesthetic detrimental issues. But then you also look at how much it actually affects our bodies on an absolute whole, let alone the tons and tons of other chemicals that are going to be jam-packed into these, I suppose, soft drinks, sugars, lollies, all this sort of stuff. It's not natural. We know that for a fact. So it's not just the sugar that you're consuming out of these products. It's actually all, like, I suppose, the refined ingredients and the processing that actually goes with it that's also really detrimental. Summarizing, end of the day, there is definitely several types of sugars that we need to be, I suppose, conscious of how much we're having. But realistically, if you're a healthy, happy human being, you're having 2 pieces of fruit a day and you're not excessively consuming junk food, honestly, sugar and fruit is the least of your concerns.
Really good answer. And also, would you consider fruit to be more of a voluminous type food, whereby it's lower in calories, likely to keep you fuller for a lot longer? Say, where vegetables, it's encouraged that you fill your plate with veggies because it's high in volume, low in calories, sort of along that line.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, fruit, for example, like people can have, mangoes, and some large bananas can easily push, something like 180 calories, which, like, as much as like, yes, we are calorie counting, and I'd hate for someone to draw down their, I suppose, overall outlook on health to counting their calories in fruit. But yes, for those of us obviously doing challenges like this, calories is something you have to, I suppose, take into account, which is why there's 2 servings of fruit per day as opposed to 5 servings of vegetables that are recommended per day. So that's where, I suppose it's just being mindful that, whilst it's definitely something that's a lot more beneficial for you than, soft drinks and general sort of crap, it's still something that, like anything, you got to moderate. You can't just go, I'll just have another piece of fruit and then you're up to 10 serves by the end of the day.
Yeah. Everything in moderation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, cool. So next one is from Cal again. So I'm sure we all understand that it's okay to have days when we're not so good with the good food eating. It takes a long time for the body set point to lower, but really, how quick is it for that to reverse? How easily will the body just want to go back to the old ways? Let's say you lose 20 kilos in a year. How realistic is it that the weight/body composition will be retained? I think that's a really good question, especially for the body set point.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a great question. It's also very subjective. So end of the day, if someone spent the time to say lose 20 kilos, which is a pretty extravagant and fantastic thing, if that's what their goal was, obviously, depending on where they started with, it comes down to then what you're doing afterwards. So realistically, if they're going to return back to their old ways of like their old sedentary routine with no exercise, very minimal general activity, and then they're also making poor dietary choices, then straight away you know for a fact that they're going to start putting that weight back on quick and fast. And generally that's why like really extravagant and I suppose strenuous diet plans don't work, because you're virtually, I suppose, starving yourself, achieving this really low body weight. And then you're like, well, like I am so hungry now. Like I've been hungry for months. And so you start to go, I miss these foods. And then they start to circle back in and you haven't actually learned anything in the process. So that's just an absolute given. Whereas on the contrary, if someone's lost 20 kilos and then, say you sit down and you're supported by a health professional, i.e. a dietitian, that you actually go, right, okay, well, you've lost 20 kilos. That's something that we need to absolutely factor in to where you are now as a person, as an entity, because that's then, as we know, is going to change also like or your bare minimum, your metabolic rate, which is your big determinant of how much energy you're actually burning per day. So if we then obviously take the opportunity to recalculate everything and then essentially, promote this revolutionized lifestyle of a better and more controlled eating sort of plan and schedule, and then obviously continuing with those good activities, whether that's going to the gym or you actually become a really active person, and some people they turn their lives around to actually then be these people that go like off hiking and mountaineering every weekend, and that's how they keep them up, because they actually, I suppose, really bring this revolutionized life to really become who they are now. Like they completely change people.
Yeah, so there's definitely change in identity, I think, is a huge one through the process. And obviously what was once a huge challenge for them and it was a real effort is now obviously their new normal. And so long as they stay the course, then obviously they're not likely to put that weight back on anytime soon. So Cal, if you keep up the hard work, mate, there's probably less likely chance that you're going to plonk all that weight.
And it is hard, and that's why often there are cycles, just like there is with progressive training. You have your microcycles, mesocycles and macrocycles. Same sort of thing somewhat with diet. Is at the end of the day, we're doing this 6 weeks now we want to potentially afterwards put you on a bit of like a maintenance phase, kind of let you sort of refocus on other elements of your lifestyle maybe for a little bit, and then you go again, and that's how you sort of keep working through it, just as we discussed from day one. Chances are, wouldn't shock me if the moment you came back up to maintenance calories, your body goes, right, you know what, I'm actually want to take advantage of this with this extra energy availability, and you might potentially see a kilo creep back on. But end of the day, it's not, I suppose, do or die, but it's just not letting, oh god, like I put a kilo on. You really let it get set in mentally, and then you kind of just let the floodgates open, and you just end up consuming everything you used to and go back to your old ways. And that's going to be the biggest determinant of whether or not you maintain that sort of body weight point and create a new set point for yourself, or whether you let it creep back.
So with the maintenance phase, I mean, just from your own experience, if you've had a client that's lost a significant amount of weight, you reassess the situation and you say, right, we're going to just keep you in a maintenance phase. Do you still get them to sort of count calories and track their food through that time?
Look, and that's where I suppose it's all very individual. Some people love it to that extent. Other people, like myself personally, I don't count calories. But obviously I've got the knowledge to kind of look at a plate. I know exactly what I'm eating and go, right, I know roughly that serving of chicken is going to be, you know, maybe pushing about 180 calories. If I'm always only ever having half a cup of grains, and generally my grains vary usually between probably rice and pasta, as much as, you know, you think a dietitian's going to be super quirky with everything we do. Cooking like quinoa and stuff like that takes more time, and I don't have time right now. So that's where, you know, you kind of get really into routine with the foods that you eat. So you actually can kind of just lay out your days, you know, which will somewhat reflect the day before, but know that you're hitting your mark.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And like you, that's exactly how I was eating very intuitively. I think that's the whole thing about when you go through a dieting phase and you're tracking things, and then you have to stop tracking, you're just at maintenance. I think the best way to sort of tackle a maintenance mentally is to stop tracking through the maintenance phase, but to visually know what you're eating will give you a rough estimate of where you should be caloric wise.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And like personally speaking, like was able to maintain between 71, 72 kilos for a very long time without tracking for the last 2 to 3 years. And now that I have been tracking, I mean, I'm starting to cut weight, but managed to maintain it through those visual, I suppose, consistencies.
Yeah, exactly right. And you sort of start to learn what, I suppose, the foods in front of you, what they actually equate to. So it's good. Makes it a lot easier as well.
Yeah, totally. So with Ron, with all the work we're doing now, I'm confused with protein levels. Should we be supplementing with a protein powder, or is our protein we're eating from the great food Emma has helped us with enough? My levels are hovering between 100 to 120 grams a day. Hope everyone is enjoying the challenge. So I'll let you start first. I've got
positive spirit.
Good guy. So I've got a bit of a calculation here. I'll let you go first, and then I'll sort of mention how I sort of calculate it based on my end.
Definitely. Well, ultimately, like the males were sort of on about 2,500 calories. Ron, obviously, like being a little bit older and essentially smaller in stature, like he probably could have dialed that down a little bit, which we did discuss, I think, back in sort of week 1, even to sort of 2,200 or so. And that's where obviously doing everyone's body scans was really advantageous, because straight away I told him where his BMI was, and then I told everyone to sort of times by an activity factor of 1.4, which would give them roughly where they need to be, or where they need to be under more so. So for him, if he is consuming 120 grams, then realistically that's only about 20% of 2,500 calories. So that I wouldn't really say in this sort of scenario is enough for the average person, perfectly sufficient. But in this challenge, we're obviously really trying to promote both, I suppose, fat loss with muscle gain, which means we do need to have a high protein quotient. So that's where on their plans, and I'm just pulling up now, like there is direction to be consuming and supplementing with protein post-workouts. Particularly the males do have a bit more of an calorie allocation for that, because end of the day, you've got to be really, really on top of, you know, your 3 big meals in terms of your protein portions to be getting enough protein for this type of challenge without supplementing. So
totally. So
is exceeding his calories, and he absolutely should be supplementing.
So I went back into his spreadsheet, and I went to where he's currently at weight wise. So he's currently weighing in at 65 kilos. I think he started out at about 67.2, if not a little bit more from memory. So the way I work it out, full muscle gain, we want to be consuming anywhere from 1.8 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. Would you agree with that, Em?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the same sort of, I suppose, directive that we drive for athletes as well.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So then I worked it out with Ron in particular, given his body weight, that at minimum he should be consuming around 117 grams of protein per day. So he's probably hitting that minimum. But to really start packing on some muscle, and obviously to continue dropping body fat, he should be starting to push it up towards around 143 grams a day. So
yeah, and that would be honestly the difference of one protein shake. So provided he's getting that sort of post-workout protein, that'll be fantastic.
I'm finding just in general, like by having cottage cheese, 5-star lean beef mince, chicken breast, and high protein yogurt, I'm finding a big difference in just, I don't even need protein shakes personally, because I'm hitting it with food. So I think maybe it's a chance now for him to sort of look at his food choices and go, all right, how can I continue to sort of hit this through my food? But
well, exactly, like really, you know, protein powders and things like that, it's supplements are to supplement your diet. Ultimately, your diet comes first, because again, like, yes, you can get the protein, but then you can also get, you know, again, the micronutrient profile from these foods. So yeah, it's just making small swaps. Like whenever, like we've always put in Greek yogurt, but that's where he can even up it to doing like YoPro, which again, or like the Chobani Fit type yogurts, and that's going to add like another sort of 10 grams per serving. And that's quite easily an easy swap. Or then again, on the contrary, his mid-morning and afternoon snacks, instead of having, you know, like a banana and almonds, which is sort of your fats, your carbohydrates and fats, that's where you could easily turn to having, you know, like your tin tuna, or even getting a little bit extra chicken breast in with his lunch, or having like a Chobani GoPro yogurt mid-morning or afternoon. And because one of those tubs in themselves are going to add 17 grams. So it pops like that. If he wants to maximize it, easy way to do it.
So his average last week was 101 grams in protein over 7 days. So still on the lower end, Ron. So definitely needs to pick it up there. And take our suggestions on board, apply that to your meal plan, and see how it makes a change for you. So moving on, back to Craig. I find myself some days feeling lethargic. Do I need to eat more? Is there such a thing as too much protein, as I find sometimes I've had substantially more than carbs or fats? Or is this okay as I'm exercising heavily? Can you overtrain? If you do, can this affect your game? Or is it okay to push yourself and your body to adapt? Can too much training affect your fat loss, or does it simply come down to the food you're feeding your body? When performing pull-ups, that muscle groups should I concentrate on using? Sorry, I'll read this again. When performing pull-ups, what muscle groups should I concentrate on using, and what different exercises can you do to help improve them? Cool. So go ahead, because you've written down some notes for this one, haven't you, Em?
I think again, Craig's is a bit subjective, and I'm like reading down, like this is probably going to cover, as we discussed before, use probably 2 of his. So his lower question down the bottom, I think I might tie in now, which is doing night shift really stuffs up the eating plan, ... I sleep during the day and then find I don't really eat at night during the shift. Should I be trying to eat meals like normal but in reverse? So straight away I can sort of see that Craig's obviously got quite a heavy schedule, and a night shift as well. It's pretty much trying to tell your body to do the complete opposite of what we're actually designed to functionally do. So chances are his lethargy is actually tied in with his lifestyle a fair bit, and knowing that he's got a few things as well on his plate outside of the gym, and then also seeing the videos and the fact that he trains like an absolute beast. I think putting in the hard yards in virtually all components of his life, and that's what's going to be driving a lot of lethargy. Because you know, as we said, food, everything in moderation. Yes, unfortunately, it's the same sort of thing that goes with, I suppose, training and food and your lifestyle. It needs to all, I suppose, coherently work together, and some things will kind of need to give when you're really focusing on the gym environment and training really hard. Is that, you know, generally it means not going out as much and making sure you actually maximize your sleep. But then if you're having to work and your work's overnight and it really is then affecting your sleep, it's going to sort of hit you, I suppose, pretty hard. And you're going to notice that, unfortunately, despite training really well and eating really well, that third component is just, I suppose, creating those gaps for you. So, and that's just going to be something that I think personally would be more ideal to work through with him. And obviously knowing the full ins and outs of his lifestyle will be a big one as well.
Okay. Do you think with someone like Craig that it would be worth him going to potentially even getting some sort of like blood panels done to see where his cortisol levels are at, just to see if he could potentially be holding on to a lot of stress, which, you know, could potentially mean that despite all of his efforts, it may take him longer to drop the weight?
Yeah, and like it definitely doesn't hurt. I mean, anyone this day and age, realistically, like Australia's essentially the most obese country in the world per capita. Obviously, none of our clientele that we're working with at the moment are obese, but it just kind of shows that realistically there can be a lot of underlying issues. Getting your blood work is one way to kind of really, I suppose, establish and finalize where you are. Provides a good finite result anyway, and then how to sort of troubleshoot that.
Yeah.
Ultimately, sorry, what was the second part of that?
Just to sort of assess where his cortisol may be at. I'm just wondering if, given the stress of his role, if that's
Oh, no, sorry, Amanda. Yeah, so I suppose lacking sleep as well, we know for a fact directly sort of correlates with increased cortisol, and then in turn as well, increased cortisol increases sort of proteolysis, which is actually the breaking down, so the catabolic phase of protein, whereas we obviously want to be in an anabolic phase. So yeah, it's unfortunately metabolically and hormonally, it's all very, very highly connected, and particularly when you're so driven to want to see these anabolic changes, there can definitely be these other factors holding you back, particularly if stress is a big part of it, 100%.
Yeah. All right, cool. So is there such a thing as too much protein? As he finds he's obviously hitting his protein goals very easily, way more than carbs and fats. So I think a lot of people would be interested to hear about this one. Yeah.
Look, the problem is I don't actually know how much he's consuming. So generally, as we sort of developed before, if anyone can hear extra noises, my dog is in the background. So as we, I suppose, the higher quotient of protein intake is 2.2 grams per kilogram.
Yeah.
Essentially, after you consume that, there's honestly not much purpose to be consuming more.
Yeah. Why don't I pull up? I'll pull up Craig's spreadsheet just quickly so we can actually get real-time data with his weight and what his average consumption is. I know it's pretty high. It's sitting around, I think it's in excess of 160 to 180 grams a day. He's hitting it really easy. He is also,
memory serves me correct, easily sitting in 90 kilos of body weight though.
He's hovering. I think he's dropped since that. Give me a sec. Hang on.
But even then, so 2.2 grams at 85 or to 90 kilos is still exceeding sort of 180 grams. So he might feel like that. Yeah, it's definitely right up there compared to obviously someone of smaller stature.
Yeah.
But for him,
it's probably right on the mark. It seems like he's right on the money at the moment. Okay, so his last weigh-in was Saturday. He weighed in at 88.5. And his averages were 159, 140, 130, 153, 157 grams of protein per day. So I would probably say he's still well within his quota. I'd probably say he's even still under. So and truly under.
Yeah. No, I just had a little dip from my own connection there. Yeah, so I did catch the last bit of that. So yeah, I think obviously that's what everyone needs to take into account is subjectively, I suppose, realistically their body and what their makeup is.
Yeah.
Because obviously someone like his intake, it would be very, very different to Ron, who was sitting at 65 kilos, 63 kilos. I think memory serves me correct. And that would be very
65. Different. Yeah.
And that would be very, very different. But again, Craig, he has a solid amount of muscle in his body.
Yeah.
Ultimately, his body needs that, and it sounds like he's going, really, really hard in the gym.
Yeah.
If he's finding that's making up more of his macros, then chances are he's going to be in a bit of a calorie deficit. But again, that's what we were here to achieve. And clearly it's working because he's already into the 80s for his body weight. So he's
definitely, because we were sort of hovering around 90, 91 kilos for a long time. Like not much was shifting. As soon as we pretty much jumped into the challenge, I think maybe week 1 or 2 of the challenge, he started to drop weight. So so his average, so based on his averages, he's actually having about 1.8 grams per kilo of body weight at the moment. So he is sort of more towards that lower spectrum. So he can even afford to push it between 170, 180 grams a day.
Yeah, absolutely. And like even some athletes that we work with as well, like we'll easily push them up to 3 grams, but these are people who are literally living, eating, breathing to play sport. So that's a very different scenario. And realistically, the body can take a lot. It's only if you have any particular conditions where unfortunately you cannot, or your kidneys cannot metabolize and I suppose excrete out the excess protein. And that's where the concern is. And that's where I think a few things have popped up in the news in the last couple of years about bodybuilding, but they've been very, very unique cases. Otherwise, yeah, realistically, you've got to be consuming a lot of, I suppose, protein-based products. So obviously meats and I suppose tofu to some degree.
Yeah.
You know, virtually as your main composite of all your meals, and virtually only protein if you're going to be hitting that top end mark that's actually medically unhealthy for you.
So what is considered to be unhealthy? What's an unhealthy level of protein, and what are some of the side effects of this?
Oh God. Well, that's the thing. So again, it's going to be a bit subjective, and again, how much to have, I suppose these individuals are using this protein more than anything.
Yeah.
So if you're someone who's just absolutely smashing protein, but you're not actually doing any sort of type of exercise or muscular sort of development, then it's just going to be, I suppose, consumed in excess. I do know, I personally haven't had anyone present to me with excess protein consumption. Based on, I suppose, just knowledge of what obviously we've read and learned, is that you'll just get a lot of, I suppose, I think exhaustion's definitely a big one. I know for a fact that you can get a lot of dehydration because naturally your body's trying to essentially weigh out the excess protein that's coming in.
Okay.
All right. So then it's going to ultimately put out a lot of excess fluids for you. Typically then you'd come into a lot of like nausea and irritability, but these are sort of symptoms that you could almost think you've just got like a stomach bug or you've eaten something a bit strange. So it's just one of the things, rather than getting to that point, because gosh, we hope no one does, let's actually try and make sure that you're not consuming upwards of 3.5 to 4 grams of protein per kilo, particularly if you're not doing much exercise at all.
Okay, cool. So it's pretty extreme then. It's not,
very
not anything for anyone to sort of be worried about. Is it, can you get some basic sort of side effects such as bloating? So like, if you look at say like a figure competitor.
Yeah.
Because I noticed myself, I'm starting to get a little bit of constipation and bloating in the last couple of weeks. That's kind of gotten better.
Yeah. Well, I'd call it definitely like intestinal like discomfort and indigestion would probably be a very, very common one.
Yeah.
And yeah, end of the day, realistically, you have your protease enzyme, which is responsible for breaking down protein into amino acids. So protein polymers, which is your long chains, down into amino acids, which are then absorbed into the blood. And end of the day, if you're eating in excess, which is usually about 40 grams of protein per essential sitting.
Yeah.
After that, it's not really necessary. We're not actually metabolizing it or requiring it. So if you're eating in excess of say 40 to 45 grams, then yeah, wouldn't shock me if you're getting intestinal discomfort and indigestion, because then your body's kind of like, well, I've got nothing to do with this. I've actually got no more enzymes to produce right now to metabolize this.
Yeah.
So then it's left to kind of, I suppose, sit over and chances are it'll end up potentially being broken down by bacteria, which is then when you start getting a lot of, I suppose, bloating and gas, but I suppose that's a bit more of like FODMAP sort of stuff.
Right. Okay. Could that sort of stuff lead to weight gain if it's not breaking down as effectively as what it could be?
I suppose, bringing into weight gain is realistically, if you're eating that much protein and you're not doing the workload for it, chances are you're going to be eating in calorie excess, which means, yeah, you're going to be putting on weight. So that's just kind of the given drawback of it, I suppose.
Okay, cool.
Chances are if people are eating that much protein, they're also eating carbs and fats, which means, yeah, very much eating in excess.
In a surplus. All right. Cool beans. So next one is Craig again. Some days I feel like I can lift a mountain, and then other days I struggle to move the same weight. The same goes for my cardiovascular training. Some days I feel light and can push really hard, and then other days I feel heavy and my body just doesn't want to move. What's happening? Can swimming improve my lung capacity better than other cardio-based exercise? Or is this just all about your mental strength and ability to prepare yourself to do your best by focusing on your goals? So look, again, I think it comes back to his lack of sleep, for what you mentioned earlier about, lethargy being one. Lethargy and stress are two big things I think Craig is battling against, given what he does. And in terms of swimming and improving his cardiovascular, yeah, sure. I mean, swimming is going to form part of what he needs to do to apply for a specialist role with what he wants to apply for. Obviously, I'm keeping it quite private for what he wants to apply for privacy reasons. So yeah, again, that could be subjective. Is swimming going to be better? Yeah, potentially, but that's not for everybody.
I think that's a perfect way to put it. Not for everybody, but end of the day, if you want to be a better runner, run. If you want to be a better swimmer, swim.
Yeah.
Going out and go for a run, yeah, it'll increase your cardiovascular capacity. But and obviously be really beneficial is actually great recovery as well for post workouts and things like that too. But but end of the day, if you want to do sport specific training, you want to be a better swimmer, then go swim. Absolutely.
Yeah. So there you go, Craig. There you go. So last
one, we actually didn't talk about his exercise to do for chin-ups.
Yes. So I'll go back to the question. When performing pull-ups, what muscle groups should I concentrate on using, and what different exercises can you do to help improve them? So from personal experience when doing pull-ups, I think engaging your core is a huge one. So doing intra-abdominal breathing, which Craig tends to do very well. So keeping your core nice and sturdy for a pull-up. And then accessories like working the upper back muscles is really important. I think performing push-ups is really important because it teaches you how to use your serratus, so the muscles in through the side, really well. And a lot of that is that sort of scapular protraction and retraction. So, getting the scaps to retract back first, engaging and stabilizing the shoulder joints, and then going in for the pull is another one. So he's doing a lot of that sort of training anyway with a lot of his pull movement. That I think like anything,
I suppose like banded chin-ups as well, like just taking it back that one if you want to try and get more reps through, or a greater workload or more sets. Banded chin-ups are awesome because they best assimilate essentially the condition for chin-ups. As opposed to chin-up machines. They're great. They're really beneficial, obviously going to help build up your back, but unfortunately it's a very rigid posture that I tell you, you'll never execute when you do a proper chin-up. Yeah,
100%. And like I've got my other client, Cal, who's doing the challenge. She's doing assisted chin-ups with the band because our assisted pull-up machine is out of the club at the moment, which is probably a good thing because it's really forcing her to stay stable through her body because she's still getting a little bit of swing at the moment. So I try and assist her best way I can. But I think it's the more natural way of trying to achieve a pull-up and then gradually getting away from the band and moving into just body weight.
Definitely.
So, So there you go, Craig. More pull-ups, buddy. That's the way you get better at them. Cal, next one. So nutrition post-workout and types of food. I'm interested to know more. And also for different times of the day, different forms of workout, etc. Example, running versus strength training, morning versus night, and time frame to consume within post-workout. These are really good questions. This morning I went for a run and within 20 minutes of finishing, I had a mix of protein and carbs. Is that okay? And when I run at night, I often consume nothing until the next day. Pros and cons. Cool. Take it away, Em.
Okay, I think my line just dropped out for a little bit. I'm presuming you just finished the question.
Yeah. Did you get everything?
Great. I got the question. I'm reading it anyway, so it's okay. But my line just decided to go a bit dead for a little bit.
That's all right.
I think I rarely sit in this room for the purpose of my Wi-Fi tends to just not like it. But anyway. So coming back into it, sorry. Great. So realistically, as she has done and has consumed is a mix of protein and carbs, and that's honestly perfect. Whether it's strength training or running, realistically, you're still using the muscular contractions that are going to require both protein, and so amino acids primarily, which is your monomer for protein, and carbohydrates to refuel. The reason why we need your carbohydrates is part of that, because everyone goes, oh, I know I need protein, but why carbs? And then unfortunately, there is also this natural fear of carbohydrates. Realistically, carbohydrates build up your glycogen complex. So glycogen, when you break down carbohydrates, come into your free sugars, which we started talking about. And then in the muscle complex, they create, I suppose, a giant matrix, or not even a polymer, but a matrix called glycogen. And ultimately, it's essentially the fuel matrix for the muscle cells, so to speak, to keep it incredibly generalized. So realistically, if we're looking at obviously recovery is a really phenomenal one. It's a big part of all of this, but then also actually building up that muscle tissue repair, and then in the interest of, I suppose, strength training and hypertrophy is expanding that muscle size. You want to be essentially refueling those muscles, and so they can actually expand, recover, and then go again. Same sort of thing, whether it's strength training or running. The difference really between strength training and running, and I suppose what to be having post-workout is your creatine, because creatine doesn't really serve a purpose in cardiovascular exercise. So that's the only other thing that I'd say would really, I suppose, differ. So yeah, she did say that she went for a run at night and often consume nothing until the next day. Realistically, I'd probably still tell you to try and at least consume a protein shake with, like a half a banana or something like that, or on the contrary, have some high protein yogurt, because that's also going to give you a little bit of your carbohydrate too, in a different sort of format. And it's just going to help set you up a lot better, and it means that you can actually enter in your sleep cycle with the most, I suppose, opportune conditions to recover. And then in turn, realistically, we have 70% of our day's secretion of human growth hormone overnight in the third part of our sleep cycle. So realistically, yeah, if you want to actually be maximizing your recovery time and your sleep and how well it actually serves to rebuild your muscle to then be able to perform better the next day, then I would absolutely be having something, even if you feel like it's right before bed.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I remember when I was doing boxing and I was having meals sort of later in the night, and I'd often pull up sore from boxing, just given the nature of, the intensity of training. But I did find that when I was eating after training, around say 9:30 at night, that I was recovering a lot better of the morning, and just ready to go again. And when I wouldn't eat those meals, I would notice a difference as well in the morning, again, pulling up a bit sore and stuff. So there is quite a bit of magic behind it. So it's good. I
put myself in like an experimental phase of not eating after nighttime workouts, just to kind of see, and like as you do when you're a trainer and a dietitian, you kind of get a bit bored of things. You're like, I wonder how this will affect me. And I found that I actually really struggled to put muscle on in those. I think I did it for about 6 to 12 weeks, and I found that the difference between actually eating post workout, even if it is at night, versus not, I had a massive increase in muscle gain.
Yeah, right. There you go. So next one is Cal again. This is Cal's last question. So, and another question: when do you recognize that you have achieved all you can with training/food and the body is at its optimum? By this, I mean that as much as I'm happy with the food I eat and the training I do, at some stage I will have to go to maintenance, because that's the best my body will allow it to do without going into a dangerous health zone. By the way, I'm nowhere near that. It's just a query. So I had a chat to Cal about this one in the gym. Actually, we touched on this very briefly, and I think it just came down to, and I said to Cal, I go, what is your actual goal? And she goes, I actually don't know 100%. And I said, well, that's just it. I said, because until you know your goals each year, I said, because my goals change every year. I said, this year I'm going in for a bodybuilding comp. Last year I did 3 powerlifting comps. The year before that, I didn't have a specific goal. I didn't have a coach at that stage. So I was just training for the sake of training. And I just said to her, I think until you get those firm goals in place, it's very hard to know what you would consider optimum. But with that said, I said to really achieve optimum nutrition or optimum sleep, optimum everything is almost impossible as well, because optimum may not be practical.
But then I suppose it's subjective, her version of optimum, I guess, in a way.
Yeah.
Her version of optimum would be very different to, say, like an athlete who's competing for the Olympics. That I would probably call, if we're going to, I suppose, standardize optimum, then that would be your optimum. But obviously for us, here in Melbourne, we're all just going about our business, very, very different. So I suppose it's very, very subjective with what she wants to be doing with herself and her body and how she wants to be feeling.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yep, that's right. So she just needs to be happy with where she's at, and I suppose that can be her own optimum. So there you go, Cal. Hope that answers your question. Moving on to Craig now. So if you're going to use a protein powder, is it best taken pre or post workout? Which is more beneficial? What type of protein should you use if trying to get leaner? Whey protein isolate, whey protein blends, or a weight loss shred protein? Good question.
Great question.
Yeah.
Look, as we discussed from, I suppose, day one is, you can only yeah, realistically, everyone can factor in, I suppose, timing of protein consumption and timing of their macronutrients and everything. But end of the day, it's that energy balance, which is the big one. Once you're, whether or not you're achieving, I suppose, calorie surplus versus calorie deficit based on your goals, like that's your be all and end all. And then after that, we got your macronutrients. So how much protein he's consuming overall, which we know that he's definitely in a calorie deficit. He's dropping that weight. He's essentially getting, I'd definitely say enough protein for essentially his body weight as well. Yeah. So now looking at, I suppose, nutrient timing, which is that next sort of level up the pyramid. So if everyone goes back to their slides, they can sort of see what I'm talking about. Then protein is primarily best post-workout. And then you find, like, again, which is where I've advised them to either be consuming it with a source of carbohydrates or something like dextrose monohydrate, because what that's going to do is actually open up, I suppose, the muscles to be more receptive of protein and the carbohydrates into the muscle. The reason why sort of that's I suppose conducted by insulin and insulin receptors. So our GLUT4 receptors are pretty much going to drive carbohydrates into the muscle, and protein and amino acids are going to sort of piggyback that. So in terms of timing, post-workout, absolutely, that's we're in our sort of repair phase. But again, if he's getting protein, enough protein overall in the day in his overall consumption, then that's also going to be extremely beneficial and probably more beneficial.
Yeah. Okay.
Typically, I suppose the window is 30 minutes or so. Really, post-workout is where he's going to have his optimum timing. But then, in terms of, I suppose, pre-workout, generally actually having a source of carbohydrates actually serves to be a little bit more beneficial, which kind of answers one of Cal's questions from earlier.
Yeah.
In terms
of protein type, whey protein isolate, blends, or a weight loss shred protein, which is the same as a isolate essentially. What would you suggest? Even like casein?
So they all, I suppose, serve their purpose. So whey protein isolate and concentrate are probably your two standard, I suppose, post-workout proteins. Isolate is, it's more, I suppose, highly refined. So ultimately and that's, when I say that, I mean that in actually a beneficial way. So per serving, you actually get more grams of protein per, I suppose, 30 gram serve versus concentrate. It's also got faster delivery into the muscles as well. So that's where protein isolate essentially serves as being more superior, so to speak. But a lot of people also tend to have a concentrate as well, just as common. And realistically, I would honestly call it perfectly fine. And particularly if you're on a budget, whey protein concentrate is often a little bit cheaper, so that's something to factor in. Okay. There are like proteins which are blended with, like, I think you have like, slim protein. So I think what is it? Green Tea X50, I know, brought out one, and it's like a slim, hydrolyzing protein that's meant to make you burn fat at the same time. Yeah. And classically, any of these type fat burner sort of either proteins or pre-workouts, the main fat burning component they have to it is a amino acid called acetyl L-carnitine. And look, an acetyl L-carnitine, I'm going to save you guys a couple of bucks and tell you to actually go and buy a bag of that on its own. You can get it from general all supplement stores. So most supplement stores will have it, as in like a little flavored tub, and it actually costs you an arm and a leg. Things like, I think, Muscle Coach and like bulk nutrients, you can actually buy it just in like a pretty plain bag. Yeah. And you have that in the morning. That's probably got the most science or scientifically supported in terms of fat loss for, as supplements go. Doesn't taste fantastic, but end of the day, there's been great studies which have seen that people consuming acetyl L-carnitine first thing in the morning or throughout the day have seen more sort of fat loss results as opposed to I suppose the others.
Is it best is it just, can you just sort of have it within any sort of liquid like water, protein?
Yeah,
like, what's
generally
the best
they say, like, realistically to have it on an empty stomach and with water, because if you're having it with something else, like, like a juice or a cordial or whatever, that's essentially what your body's going to start metabolizing instead of the carnitine.
Okay.
So the idea is just to be sort of greater fat oxidation and to actually use fat as essentially a fuel source, as opposed to just waiting on until the next thing.
Yeah.
So that's where like these weight loss and shred proteins, that's the component that they're talking about when they talk about like a shred or a fat burning protein. But yeah, they also cost a lot more. So I'd say save your money, buy just, you know, your whey protein isolate post workout.
Yep.
And then actually have acetyl-L-carnitine at the start of your day or pre-workout.
Cool. And you suggest bulk nutrients is a good one, because they do really well priced. Do you rate bulk nutrients?
It's all give and take. I mean, personally, like I just try and find proteins that have minimalist ingredients lists.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to get something that has artificial colors, sweeteners, flavorings, and some of them have like lists. Like I know a lot of the Optimum nutrition ones have like lists of 30 products, and obviously they're all kind of I suppose anti-caking agents, all this sort of stuff. And it's just kind of like, I really shouldn't be putting something like that into my body. Let's face it.
Yeah.
The reason why I like bulk nutrients is more so, I suppose, cost benefit in the basis that they're basic packaging. They only actually, I think, run from a website and then a warehouse down in Tasmania. I'm pretty sure they support a lot of all like the bodybuilding comps and stuff like that, which is how I started to get to know them. And I find that, end of the day, provided like if their back of their packet for like acetyl-L-carnitine or creatine has 100% creatine or 100% acetyl-L-carnitine on the back, that just is what it is. So whereas again, your proteins are going to be a bit more selective with, because you have a look at some of the ingredients and it's pretty phenomenal how many ingredients they can have on the back of theirs.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Going to sort of vary a little bit, and it's just actually looking into your products really more than anything.
Yeah. So if people want to learn more about products to, I suppose, stay away from when it comes to proteins, like understanding, because I don't think a lot of people or many people, close to any people, would really understand the ingredients that are within protein shakes, because there are a lot of fillers, as they call them. How do you know, is there like a resource that we can even tag below the podcast where we can drive clients or anyone listening to understand how to read a protein label, like what the ingredients are?
I don't know if I've actually, because for me it's just been obviously personal development, obviously being in the industry and learning all this as a dietitian. But even then, like I can tell you a lot of dietitians wouldn't know how to read protein packets and supplements, but it's also because I've been essentially in the industry for so long. How long have you been in the industry for now? Professionally, sort of 5 to 6 years, but then essentially being an athlete from get-go, you start to learn about this stuff pretty quick. So that would be, essentially 10 years. Then obviously a lot more now, everything is, the information is so readily accessible, and to me I find it really interesting, and I know that I'm going to be advising other people on it, so I take the time to actually research it. So I don't think there's any particular resource, but I'm sure we can probably draw one up, because I think a lot of people would find that really beneficial. Awesome. Just do an infographic, that'll be fantastic. So we'll put it on the list of to-dos.
Cool. Sounds really good. It'd be good for myself to know as well, because I've been sticking to San Protein, that brand from America. I've been using their protein for about 4 or 5 years now. I've had no issues with it. Don't get really any bloating on it. I just use a whey isolate, and it's been pretty good. And I go through a friend of mine who supplies it to me direct to wholesale, so I trust his guidance on that one. And it's always been good. So I don't really recommend many brands, but I kind of just, if clients are getting stuff from me personally, I just refer them back to San. So
totally. And like, I think you made a really, really valid point. You trust the person you're getting it from. And that's the difference. Like, end of the day, you step into a supplement store, the people working there, they have one goal only, and that is sales. Yeah. So, and I distinctly remember from back when I was like 18 and going to supplement stores, especially for the first time. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I walked out with like $400 of stuff that I couldn't even pronounce. And I can tell you for a fact that I probably wasn't remotely doing anywhere near enough training to actually benefit from really the added benefits that supplements would actually provide me. It's like, no, I probably should have actually just sorted out my training and food first. Yeah. And so that is their goal. So for me, like, I actually go to virtually only one store in Melbourne, and that's Muscle Coach in Cheltenham, purely because the guys there, like, they know their stuff, and like they also know that I'll pull them up on it too. And like, they're just completely like wholeheartedly passionate about what they do, and they just love that, people are just trying to obviously be better versions of themselves. And And so, yeah, I think you made a very, very valid point, which is you've got to actually trust the person that you're, I suppose, getting the information from. So that's completely understandable.
Totally. So, Shaz has got. I'll ask the two questions together actually, because these are going to be fairly straightforward. So, first one is, my question's very similar to Craig. I'm a tradie and always on the go. I'm eating a lot of protein bars and natural dates. Is it good for me? And what can I do to prepare my protein snacks that are healthy and low in calories that I can take anywhere with me? That's the first one. The second one is, working as a tradie all day, I'm a little I like a little power nap to energize me before I go to the gym later. When you're over 40, what can you do or eat to increase your energy levels and testosterone levels? So I did a little bit of research myself on this. So this is a really good training answer for the first one. So go through the first one. So about, I suppose, are dates healthy? What was the other question? Protein bars, natural dates. So yeah, just protein snacks, I suppose, alternatives to what he's currently consuming.
Yeah, well, I mean, protein bars you got to be really careful with, because quite easily, just like your basic Quest protein bars and that like sort of more commercialized range now, because they're now in supermarkets, are easily pushing like 180 calories. And like for them, I've allocated like about 200 calorie snacks. And so he's doing that plus some dates, and then chances are he's maybe not calorie counting his meals and stuff as much, then it wouldn't shock me if he's going to quickly enter in a calorie surplus. Dates are great, but they are dried fruit. Yes, they are a fruit. It's fantastic. I'd rather him have that than, other sort of sugary stuff. But again, because it's dried, they're a lot more dense. So really, if you're going to be having dates, I'd be looking at 2 to 3 dates maximum in a sitting, and even per day. And chances are he's probably not having that. It wouldn't shock me if he's exceeding that. So again, you look at the ingredients list on the back of protein bars and you could easily be seeing 20, 30 ingredients, because at the end of the day, they've had to sort of realistically refine all this stuff and chuck it all together and create a bar out of it. So he's better off, realistically having a protein shake that maybe only has 2, 3, 4 ingredients on the back of it, which is classically usually about 100, 130 calories, instead of 200 plus. And that's a better alternative for starters if you just want that real quick fix. Instead of having dates, great. If he's having 2 to 3 dates, that's perfectly fine. Good little pick-me-up, bit of a sweet fix, perfect. But if he's going to be eating more, then I'd rather him actually have like 2 to 3, small nectarines or plums or something like that. That's actually going to give him a bit more volume as well, and make him feel a lot more full. And then it also gives you the fiber. Protein snacks we discussed, even like with Ron, with how he wanted to improve his protein, is looking to things like your YoPro and Chobani Fit yogurts. Otherwise, like tins of tuna and some crackers are great, like portable sort of stuff which tradies need. For him, he could very much as well just cook up a little bit of extra sort of chicken or meat from the night before, and actually just have that in like his own little sort of mini serve ready to go for the afternoon. Because it's also going to make him feel a lot fuller for longer, because he's eating proper food, not just packaged crap.
So actually, coming back to what you just said, so Con actually asked a separate question in the group, I think maybe a week or two ago, about, because he works out on site a lot. So Con's a photographer, and he tends to obviously work out on site, doesn't always have access to microwaves and stuff. How can a person like Con, still obviously hit his macros and just be able to eat without a microwave? So really good one for the tradies out there that are listening.
Well, like I've done, and with my partner he's a carpenter, he used to just kind of have these real bland like ham and cheese sort of sandwiches that you classically see in school lunches, and I was like, what are you doing? Being a tradie as well, like you're very obviously physically and laborious throughout the day, like manual labor, so you actually need a lot more, I suppose, just greater quality of food, really. And I can tell you ham's got bugger all protein in it for starters. So what he does now at the start, like the night before, is gets a container, puts in like a handful of spinach, handful of cheese, shredded cheese, a tomato, some red onion. And he wants some attention, and then takes 2 wraps with him, and then also cooks up about a full sort of chicken breast, or he cooks up sort of 4, and then splits them across the 4 days. And then puts that, just a straight chicken breast cooked in the container, and he actually just makes his wraps at work, like sets up, you know, his little container lid and does a little like mini sort of table setup on his break. Because for him, it means that the products don't get all sort of smushed together in a wrap, and he can actually eat really well. And then like we change that up by either doing like mince meat the night before, or doing like chicken kebabs. So instead of having like wraps, he does pita bread and then brings a little bit of tzatziki, and that's how he mix it up. You keep that back template of putting things in their own containers, or like in one big container, and then preparing it together at work, which you don't microwave anything for. It's the same thing. Like you want that little afternoon snack, then take a little bit of pita bread, a little bit of excess meat from the night before, tablespoon of tzatzikis, maybe a handful of spinach, and you've got like your own little mini pita pocket that you can make on the spot that doesn't need a microwave. So I think it's finding the foods you like and then being really smart with how you can kind of tweak them a little bit to actually be convenient on site, so to speak. Yeah.
Obviously, it's not going to be like always ideal working out on site without a microwave. Like you may not, you know, have that luxury of being able to have that meat with that vegetable and that potato per se. But there's still a way to hit your protein, carbs and fats through other food sources, which are quite portable. So I think it's quite doable.
And like eggs, boiled eggs, absolute given. Absolutely brilliant. So that's something that I'll always come back to personally myself as well. Because it's not actually eat your proteins as opposed to always drinking them through shakes or, you know, bars and stuff like that. So
I actually made a suggestion to him, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I've done it in the past and it seemed to have worked well. If I've ever gone to conferences and I've had to take my own food, and it's going to be like a whole day thing, I tend to heat my food up in the morning, wrap it up in alfoil and try to keep it as warm for as long as possible. Is that are there any sort of health risks to that?
Yeah, so the main thing that comes to mind with that is that we have our food temperature danger zone, which is between 5 and about 65 degrees. So if your food is sitting below or in that range, then it becomes essentially quite exposed to bacteria and viral development, so to speak. And I suppose that's the hard part, because it depends if you can keep it warm and it actually stays above, you know, out of that temperature danger zone, then not a bad option. But I think that's where you might need to play with it a little bit, heat it up, put it in your aluminium foil, and then like there's not many people really have temperature probes at home to bring with them, but it might be worth kind of experimenting and seeing where your food is actually sitting. Same sort of thing if you're cooking like a batch of chicken at night and then you're going to put it in the fridge, you know, ready to pull out in the morning, so to speak. You actually want to let your food cool down before you actually put it in the fridge, because it means chances are if you put it into the fridge when it's hot, it's actually going to heat up the environment around you, and then your whole fridge is going to enter that temperature danger zone, because fridges typically sit below 5 degrees. So it's just general food safety, because the last thing we want to be developing is food poisoning and like gastro bugs and stuff like that, because they're not pretty.
Okay. Actually, that's interesting. I didn't know that about, obviously that's a big factor why you don't put food that you've just cooked straight into the fridge, because not so much it affects the food itself, but it can affect the other food temperatures within the fridge.
Well, I mean, it's the sort of thing as that food, say, coming down from 100 plus degrees, and it's in the fridge, it's going to be sitting in that temperature danger zone for a while. Whereas if you let it cool on its own, then you put it in the fridge, it's going to reduce down under 5 degrees a lot faster.
Okay. All right, cool. So I hope that answers your question there, Shaz. So the other thing to boosting testosterone, so I took some notes on this one. So I suppose the simplest alteration we could make to his training is he's still within his beginner phase. So, so the simplest alteration you can make to your training program to boost testosterone is by incorporating complex compound movements, but not just any compound movement. The bigger, the better. A snatch is a better T booster than a bench press, and a deadlift is much better than a one-arm dumbbell row. By recruiting more total muscle mass along with a challenging motor pattern, it leads to a big metabolic stress on your body. This is the perfect formula for releasing more testosterone. So training with higher volumes, for example, more sets and reps, focused more around building strength rather than size. Apparently increasing cholesterol levels as well. So a carnivorous rich diet with foods such as whole eggs, beef, fish, cheese, and other cholesterol-rich foods are essential to maximizing testosterone. and omega-3s help to reduce the risk to high cholesterol levels. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. It's like,
yes and no, because we don't. So cholesterol is the precursor for testosterone development metabolically. Hormonally, I should say. Cholesterol in food actually doesn't contribute to high cholesterol levels in the blood. The main reason why they'd probably be adding sort of that advice, which you'll see just about, I suppose in any sort of general website, is that, things like, I suppose, your bigger cuts of meat and your saturated fats that then come with, I suppose more meat intake and, obviously other sort of junk foods and whatnot, is that it's high intake of saturated fats that actually increase the cholesterol levels in your blood. So cholesterol, for example, eggs, really high in cholesterol, doesn't actually increase your blood cholesterol. So go to town on eggs.
Cool. That's good to know, because a lot of people stress out about eggs. So
yeah, they do. And it's just like, there's actually a lot of, memes and stuff like that. And obviously like dietitians and stuff find really funny, because it's literally that if you look past like the backs of, I think, 40 years or 50 years, first they were bad, and then they were good, and then they were bad, and now they're good. And like now, obviously, with the advances we have in science, and obviously the fact that we've been studying this for a long time, you can safely say they're good for you. So it's perfectly fine.
Okay, cool. No, that's good. That's great to know. Great info. So, so I think with Shaz, it's just a case of the more advanced he becomes with his training, we can move him into more strength phases with bigger lifts. And he just needs to be patient with his process and stay the course long term, so we can move him into more, just more intricate lifting, more focused on, more techniques. So that's it.
And sleep for him, definitely. Well, for everyone, realistically, because it plays a really, really big part metabolically, and particularly in terms of, as I've mentioned before, your human growth hormone production as well is highly dependent on getting essentially, realistically 7 to 9 hours of sleep, so you can actually enter the stage 3 to sleep cycle. So you enter that sort of 3 to 4 times a night. So the more times you do, the more essentially a secretion of this hormone we're going to get. And that's going to be sort of like your next best thing.
Yep. All right. Cool, Em. Well, that wraps up all our questions. So I hope everyone has taken a wealth of information from more so Emma than myself. It is definitely a team effort, but you've obviously have dropped a lot of knowledge bombs there for everyone. So thank you again for your input and your participation in with this challenge. And obviously we are going to do a lot more together in the future, which I'm looking forward to.
For you to even tell me like some of the weights that some of the I suppose team members are starting to be sort of hitting is awesome. Like both, I suppose, weights in terms of what they're lifting, but also their body weight. It's pretty awesome. So it's pretty remarkable.
And everyone is dropping weight. So whatever we've done or whatever we've put together, it has worked. So I'm stoked with it. So it's cool.
Yeah. Awesome.
Anyway, so that wraps it up, guys. So if you want to check Emma out, so if people want to come to you and they want to get a full profile with their nutrition, how can they get in touch with you?
You have me already on obviously our Facebook group together, but then you can also look up my page, Emma Cook Exercise and Nutrition, and then also the practice, which I'm based at in the South Bank, is Mobility Health. So actually I probably would really suggest jumping on the Mobility Health Facebook page, because we actually, us all, so there's myself, a chiropractor, an osteo, a manual therapist, and a spinal decompression unit. We all actually post up weekly blogs individually about sort of our services, and also really, really interesting information about obviously where we specialize in. And so my last one was on non-exercise activity thermogenesis. A couple of weeks ago I posted one on 5 reasons why you might not be achieving a calorie deficit, which I think a lot of you guys would be really, really interested in reading. Because chances are you might have previously, maybe not now in the challenge, but previously have experienced some of those. So I reckon that page is definitely one to be following, because there's a lot of really good content on.
I'll make sure that I link those below. So Em, if you can send me those privately, and then I'll link them into our channel below, so you guys can check them out, get some more information from there. So that's it. So thanks again for listening in. Make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. Comment below if there's anything that you would like to say, suggest, or anything that you might have disliked about today's show. which I may find very hard to believe, but we're not perfect. So once again, thanks, Em, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.